Welcome to WKRP Montrose, a radio station masquerading as a podcast about Montrose, Colorado, and the Western Slope. Recording live from the Clear Network studio.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of WKRP in the Clear Networks studio.
That faded out, the intro.
Yeah, I've been working on it.
That hasn't happened before.
Listen. You got to learn how to give a compliment. That's not really a compliment when you do it that way.
It faded out. Good work.
There we go.
That was really good work.
Thank you very much.
Little attaboy for
I
you.
appreciate it.
So
we
yes,
got, this is
Clear Network Studio.
Clear Network studio.
So
Thank you.
This will be the first episode with our recurring guest in the Clear Network studio. Before, it was just the unnamed, it was Studio F.
Right.
So I'm kind of excited about this one. I'm always excited to have our guest. I can't see the camera. Oh, do we have a shot? Is it just me and you right
What do you mean, do we have a shot?
Is it just me and you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to name the guest until...
Do you want me to bring the guest on now?
Build up a little suspense. Yeah, come on.
Hey, Bill Bell. Welcome back to the Bell Curve with Bill Bell.
Bell Curve.
Hey, we did that. We didn't ask you if we could do that. We just decided we were going to name it that.
That's great.
Are you okay with it?
Yeah.
I think, were there any other suggestions that we came up with?
I don't know. I feel like you guys feel free to weigh in. 970-316-3162. Or better yet,
we're not going to change it, but you can have your say if you like.
Sure, yeah.
We're not changing it.
We'll let you give your opinion. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel. That would be a good idea. And then you could leave a comment below and say if you wanted to leave a comment.
Yeah, subscribe.
Leave some comments. Leave some intelligent comments.
Well, you know what? Just let's start with comments.
Oh, okay.
Any comment.
Don't have any expectation of what should be there?
Engagement. We need engagement. We do genuinely need people to subscribe.
Yeah.
It really helps us to be able to continue to do this. So if you don't like us, don't subscribe. And then we'll probably end up going away. But
no, do subscribe.
If you do like
you don't care.
Then just hit the button. You don't even have to really watch them. Just subscribe.
That's true. It's a very low impact scenario for you. You just have to hit a button. Exactly. It's a high impact scenario for us.
Exactly. All right. So we got a lot of stuff to get through, I think.
Yes, we do. It's going to be an episode.
Yeah. And as usual, Mr. Bell
is very comfortable on the couch.
Too comfortable.
Yeah.
But, like the last two episodes, we tried to make him squirm a little bit. Didn't work. I think we might have him today.
We can try again. Try again.
Okay. First of all, how are you?
How you been?
How's everything?
I'm good. Yeah. Thanks for having me back.
That's not true. You've been sick.
Well, I might cough every now and then. I've had bronchitis and walking pneumonia, and I'm recovering from that.
Yeah, and you've been working through it, too.
Been working through it, yeah.
I know everybody's going to think that...
They are thinking that you have already just set yourself up for
being too nice to the guy.
Being too nice.
Yeah, that's okay. We're friends. I don't mind that.
Yeah.
We traveled out to the Pacific Northwest when we had bronchitis, and that's not a good climate for
nice
that
and damp
particular thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was glad to get back to the dry country. It's nice.
And it has been dry, although looks like there's some weather coming in. So hopefully we get some moisture in the area.
Yeah, it's going to snow because it's girls' golf season and spring soccer season.
So it's just inevitable.
Perfect.
Speaking of which, hey, congratulations to the Redhawks. Just the boys basketball team just had a victory the other night, right?
Yep, against the Durango Demons.
Yeah.
I was there.
Okay, good for you.
Repping WKRP.
Were you?
No, I actually, but probably repping Clear Network because I had a hoodie on and I ran into, the head honcho over there.
Yeah.
So that was good.
It was good. So congratulations, guys.
Yeah, well done. So let's get started.
There's a lot.
Questions. So
how do you want to dig into this?
Well, we're going to start with the elephant in the room, so to speak. It's the big issue at the moment, and that is the homelessness or unhoused issue that has been at the forefront of discussion in Montrose recently. So before we get into kind of the nitty-gritty with some questions, can you give us an overview of this situation from your perspective and what you can and cannot comment on right now?
Yeah, when you're talking about unhoused, you're talking about the downtown issue behind the Methodist Church.
Yeah.
So we've been dealing with kind of a growing population of the unhoused downtown for the last year to year and a half, really since Shepherd's Hand moved to that downtown location.
Right.
Because they go there to get food throughout the day and I think they have showers and some certain day type services over there.
Okay.
They originally wanted to allow overnight stays at Shepherd's Hand, but our code just doesn't allow services after in the evening and overnight, and so that applies anywhere in the downtown business district, and so those rules apply right behind the Methodist Church as well.
Okay.
The issue has been we met with the Methodist Church folks. They are trying to do the right thing. They're trying to do what they think is right, and so their intentions are really good. But unfortunately, what they're doing violates city code.
Okay.
And so the police department or code enforcement, all of us are in a tough position because we can't ignore the city code.
Right.
The code's the code. That's the law of the land, so to speak, within the city limits. And so our hands are tied sometimes where we want to partner with people and work with them as much as we can, but at the end of the day, we have to enforce the law equally throughout the community. And over the years, many years, there have been churches around the community in various locations wanting to set up shelters, and we've had to tell them no as well. So we think it's being fair and equitable to follow those same rules. So we, over the past, really started just before Christmas Eve, I think it was right around that time, and we had to start issuing citations for code violations. We first issued notices and warnings and tried to work through it. But when those warnings just weren't followed, we had to issue the citations. So those went to the Municipal Court. We also had the county public health issue citations as well because it violated some public health issues. Over in that area, there's just a lot of people congregating in a small area. They're sleeping outside. There are dogs at large. There's a lot of other things going on with needles and those kinds of things. So it's just not good for public health. And then the fire marshal got involved as well for some fire code violations. And so all that went to the municipal court. The municipal court dismissed it and said that the only issues that were brought before the court that she deemed to be urgent and really important to handle right away were the fire code issues. And because the fire marshal said that they were working on those issues, basically you get some time to remedy, she threw everything else out. And so that tied our hands. We're unable to enforce the code. And so now we filed at district court.
Okay.
And so we're moving that up the ladder, so to speak, going to a different court to see if we can get remedies there. But we've had a lot of complaints and a lot of discussions with the business owners in that particular area. There's been just a lot of negative activities going on related to what's happening behind the church. And we need to enforce those rules so we can protect the property owners that are right across the alley.
So the church is trying to do the right thing, but if you go to Grand Junction and you go to a homeless shelter in Grand Junction, some of the different ones that they have there, and they've got a lot of issues that they're dealing with as well. There's a lot of rules as being part of that shelter, like the time, and also it's all indoors for that matter as well. But there's a lot of rules, like you have to be into the shelter by a certain time. They do check you to see, what you have with you and on you before you come in. Is the church in the spirit of trying to do the right thing? Are they following some of those other leads that show like, hey, if you're going to do this, this is kind of what you need to do to be able to do it? Or is it just a scenario where, in the best of your knowledge, is it just a scenario where the church is trying to be a good Samaritan and trying to help people that they feel like are in need?
I think it's the latter. From talking to, we met with the pastor, his wife, and a few of the key members of the church who are doing the outreach and that kind of thing. And I think they're just trying to do the right thing. They believe that that's their calling. It's part of what the Methodist Church does. And unfortunately, we asked them about the existing shelter because the city owns what used to be the Brown Center behind the animal shelter area. Mm-hmm. And we've partnered with Lighthouse Ministries several years ago to provide a winter shelter, and it has available beds. And so we asked them, why aren't these people over there indoors in a shelter? And unfortunately, they aren't allowed into that particular shelter because they're either under the influence of drugs and or alcohol, or they have their dogs and they don't allow dogs in the shelter, or they have mental illness and they're a little volatile and unpredictable, maybe not safe. And so these are the people primarily, not all of them, but most of them, I believe, from what we've been told, are the ones that either don't want to or can't go into these type of shelters you're talking about, because most shelters have rules where you cannot be under the influence of drugs or alcohol. You can't bring sharps into the facility.
Right.
You can't be volatile and dangerous to others, and can't, those types of things. So they're dealing with the ones that aren't going to the regular shelter. So just want to make sure the community knows we have a shelter. We pay, we partner with them. We provide it for free. But we don't have enough beds there to serve the entire homeless population in Montrose. So that is an issue.
Yeah.
And so we've also created this Unhoused roundtable several months ago. We have about 20 people from various nonprofit organizations and governmental organizations within Montrose. And they get together every couple of months, and they just had a meeting last week to talk about permanent solutions.
Right.
And what we're seeing as best practice, we're spending this year studying those best practices about wraparound services, provide a larger shelter with different populations, different access points, and then provide workforce development, mental health services, and food service component, all on site.
Right.
So that's what we're working towards.
One of my next questions was going to be, how do we resolve this? I mean, that would seem to be a large part of the answer. Is there a timeline for something like that to be up and running?
Our goal was, when we started a few months ago, by the end of 25, we'll have a plan put together, and then we can approach the state about funding a facility of that nature, and we will have picked a location that works with zoning and the code of ordinances and that kind of thing, and have the appropriate partnering agencies on board. So that's our goal by the end of 25, to have some plan.
What can the public do? And where can the public find information about this roundtable, or about get involved if they want to? Who leads the roundtable?
The roundtable isn't open to the public because we want to be able to have the major stakeholders who deal with the population to have open and frank discussions.
Okay.
Because sometimes when you're there, we actually had media show up at the first roundtable. Yeah. And then they wrote inaccurate things out in the newspaper and stuff. So we want to make sure everyone that's coming feels comfortable and safe to say, actually, this particular person should not be around these people. Right. Because they know the population. Right. And so it's important that we don't open that up to the public. Right. But our goal, to be transparent, was quarterly we'll do a public report from the roundtable to the city council at a public work session. Okay. And then that'll be available online for everyone in the community. If you have more questions about, or anybody does, about the roundtable, how it works, Chris Ottinger and Michelle Wingfield with DART would be the ones to talk to.
Okay.
There you go.
I mean, it's a step towards a solution. And I think that's something that, I didn't know about, and I'm sure a lot of the community don't know about. Obviously, that's a little ways down the line, and this situation is still in a state of flux. I want to ask something that has been put to us. So it's been suggested that from some citizens who live in the area that the issues have been overstated. But we also read that there was a CPR article, and you said, or was attributed to you, that activists are prone to understate the problems. So we have this kind of the situation where, some people are saying it's being blown out of proportion, and other people are saying, well, actually, you're understating it for perhaps your own reasons. Which do you think? Yeah. What do you think?
So we go by facts and figures. Okay. I'm a very analytical person. Anybody who works with me knows that. Yeah. And so I don't really go with anecdotal or emotions. I should smile more, but I don't.
I'll do it for you.
Thank you. So we know we've had 2 drug overdoses at this site. We know we've had an attempted stabbing at Shepherd's Hand right across the Centennial Plaza, same population. Yeah. We know we've had a nearby business who's across the alley had a perpetrator go into her studio and say nasty things to her, and then have stalking kind of behavior, beating on the back door, those kinds of things. So those are all real things. They're not being overstated. And then anyone who's driven down the alley, really the first couple of months when it was really out of control, they've done a pretty good job trying to contain it now and organize it. but it was getting to where it was spilling out into the alleyway. They needed several dumpsters every week because of all the garbage and trash and open fires, just all kinds of stuff was going on over there.
Yeah.
They have tried to do a better job to make it a little more palatable.
Yeah. I want to take this opportunity as well to give you the chance, not as the city manager, but as a citizen, to give your thoughts on the situation in terms of, I don't know, I wonder if people feel like you're heartless, you're certain things, because in your position you have to enforce this code, as you said. But do you want to take a second just to, what are your thoughts on this? What is a really unfortunate situation?
Yeah, we've had a lot of discussions, whether it's at public council meetings or in our meetings with some of the people that are working on this issue, and people say nasty things. So we get accused of a lot of things. Mm-hmm. So I try to remind them that most of us have family members who have mental health issues. We've all dealt with that. We've had family members with drug addiction issues or alcoholism. I've had all those in my family. I get it. I tell the groups that my nephew is homeless. He travels around the country. He has mental illness. So it's not an easy issue. None of us are able to escape from that. Right. Most likely all of us deal with that at some point in our lives. So it doesn't mean we don't care about people, but we have 21,000 people to think about, not just a smaller population of 150. And so when you're looking out for the greater good, which is probably the hardest part of our jobs, the police chief and I and the council members, is we have to look out for the majority of our citizens. And that started, a lot of people blame this on our camping ban ordinance, but because a lot of these people were camping in the parks, and now they've moved over behind the Methodist Church, we always, I think we talked about it maybe even last time, it's always been illegal to camp overnight in our park. So it wasn't a new law. Right. It just had a little teeth to it. Mm-hmm. Well, the activists you mentioned invited them to come downtown to make a point. And so we know that it's not the best way to communicate or to work together to solve an issue. And so I'm not a heartless person. I care a lot about people, or I wouldn't be in public service. Right. A lot of us could go work in the private sector, make a lot more money than we make, although I make a pretty good salary, and I appreciate that.
We'll come to that later. Somebody's asked us.
Well, I want to jump in. I want to jump in here. There's something that you said really resounds with me, especially as somebody that has a younger daughter that comes back in and out of the community, and something that Blaine said in his update, like that we have, like when So the park situation, and camping in the park and the encampments that are in a lot of the public spaces, that you've created better sightlines and opportunities to not feel, to feel a little safer when you're in the park. I think that this is important. And you said something. It's not that it's not that anybody's heartless, but when you have to create a safety for a community that is going to impact somebody. And the hope is that you impact the least number of people that you possibly can. Not do it the other way. Try to help somebody and impact the most number of people that you can. So I listen, I know you guys are going to jump in on this and be like, well, you guys are friends and you're just being soft on them. No, I'm telling you guys, it's got to be a tough decision to actually impose the rules when you want to be able to help somebody. But in some cases, that help doesn't necessarily always look like help, right? It's a rule that has to be in place to try to create some sort of protocols to make something happen. And so I think people just need to understand that, it's not a matter of, do I care about somebody or do I not care about somebody? It's, I care about everybody and I want to make something safe for everybody. And so I don't envy you or the police, the police staff and administrative staff and the city and the council and everybody. These are tough decisions, but I do thank you for some of the work that you've done, whether people agree with it or not. When I walk through the park with my wife now, I feel a lot better about it.
So I mean, I don't want this issue to dominate this whole episode.
Well, it is one of the biggest things that people are talking about.
There is one more thing that I want to talk about surrounding this, and you mentioned the the media, and sometimes there are misquotations and all that kind of stuff. So there is a story, a CPR article, and there's a quote from you, and there's a sentence in it that specifically upset some people. And we have been asked by a few people to just put that to you, and then we'll, let you have your say.
Colorado Public Radio, not like, you know, CPR, like.
Yes, thank you, Dennis. So I'm going to read the full quote because that's fair.
Yeah.
And then it's the last sentence, and then we're going to let you explain it or have a say on it, and then we'll go from there. So the quote is from you. Unfortunately, there's so many different types of people experiencing homelessness. We can build shelters that will help the good people, but we're not ever going to allow violent individuals, sexual predators, or people strung out on heroin who are unpredictable to be in those same shelters with families and kids and that kind of thing. So what we're seeing right now, and that I don't know why this quote's a bit broken up, we don't, as a city, believe that it's our job to figure out the solution for people who have made really bad decisions in their lives. So obviously that last sentence is a little inflammatory. People are a little bit upset by it because the implication being that homelessness for some people is a choice and that kind of thing. So can you...
Homelessness for some people is a choice. So people that work with this population on a regular basis, they know the individuals in our community that will never go into a shelter.
Right.
They want a nomadic lifestyle. They don't like authority. They're not going to follow any rules. They're the ones when the police officers and the mental health co-responders go and visit them at their encampments throughout the park system, and they're handed a resource guide with, here are the shelters, here's the nonprofits, here's Hilltop Resources, here's Center for Mental Health or Access, and they shred that paper right in front of the person that gave it to them and said, I don't need that.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that choose to, you can call them homeless or unhoused or whatever. Those are just terminologies that we all use, and they get confused.
Right.
There are people that don't want to be in the system. They don't want anybody monitoring their behavior. They just want to be free in their mind. So that's the truth of it.
Yeah.
Whether some people don't like that statement or not, it is what it is. And then the same thing with if people think that a lot of people that are homeless don't have some type of a mental health illness or issue, they're fooling themselves, because the majority of the people are not choosing what I just described. That's a very small amount of the population. But the rest of them have some type of mental health disorder, either caused by drug addiction, alcoholism, some traumatic things that have happened in their lives, or they just have biological issues, bipolar disorder or paranoid schizophrenia. There's a lot of mental health disorders, so many out there. And that's why there's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
Building a shelter and just saying, here's some beds, is not going to solve the problem. That's why we have to partner with all the different agencies from different angles and try to come up with what is the root cause of this unhoused population's issue. And each person is different.
Yeah.
And so to work with those individuals and find out, why are you doing this?
Right.
And then get a relationship established and find out that, well, my rent went up and I lost my job. There are situational homeless that are probably in Haven House already. Haven House does a great job for those types of people. There's people who have been battered by their spouse, male or female, and they're at Dolphin House or they're at some other location in the community. They're also unhoused, but they're not the ones that are choosing to live out in the parks or live out in the parks so they can do open fires and shoot up drugs. And
they're actively looking for help. They're actively trying to improve their situation. It's a similar conversation that we had with Blaine and trying to understand it, and that people, I like what you said earlier. It's a tough conversation to have when you're not just strictly talking about the facts, like the actual numbers. Yeah. If you get into the emotional side of it, it's going to be really tough, because I don't think anybody wants to see anybody, hurt or unhoused or, in a bad situation.
Not.
So
we just visited schools in Portland and Seattle area. And so I would encourage anyone who cares about this issue and truly wants to understand it, look at some of those major cities that have been facing this for years. Go to Miami, Florida. Encampments of cardboard houses have been that way for 2 decades.
Well, you don't have to go that far. You can go to Denver. Like,
well, nowadays, yeah.
You can go to Denver, you can go to Austin, Texas.
So it's been an issue, and I can't remember if we talked about it last time, but I worked at the mental health institution in Wyoming after law school. My mom worked there. She was in charge of the community reintegration program, and 25 years ago, the state and federal government stopped funding a lot of mental health institutions, and so they were under a mandate to start releasing them and integrate them into the communities. Well, when you take people that have been housed in an institution their whole life and you release them out into the communities, there's bound to be issues.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to pay for those institutions anymore. That's the big problem. Because even if we built, and when we build a shelter with this wraparound approach, we have to be willing to pay the ongoing maintenance costs of $1 million to $2 million a year to run that facility.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so the state and federal government hasn't wanted to pay those things for years.
Would this will be the last bit of this, I think. So I want to go back to that quote again because it has come up several times, but it seems unfortunately worded. But if you had the opportunity, when you say it's not our job to figure out the solution for people who have made really bad decisions, would you change that if you could, or do you think it's perfectly accurate for what you believe?
Well, my interview with them is just like my interviews with you. I don't really prep for them. I just talk about things.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change those words because I really don't think, although some people in the community say I'm not a conservative, I actually am. And a lot of us are here in Montrose, or we're moderates. And so we don't get involved in the partisan part of things.
Yeah.
But why should it be government's job if you choose to use heroin? Nobody forced you to do that when you were whenever, right? Some people start at 10, some 15, some 30. Right. The government didn't make you choose to try that drug, and now you've become hooked on it. Or they didn't make you become an alcoholic so bad that you've lost all your family, lost all your jobs, you can't hold down a job, and you have no money. So those are decisions that people make. That doesn't mean we don't appreciate the dynamic of battling those issues. Because it's very hard, right? My brother was addicted to cocaine my entire life.
Yep.
He got off for a while, he got back on, struggled with addiction until he died at 43. So they are tough things, but it is a lot of money from the taxpayers to pay for the ongoing care. And so I was talking and still talking now about that very small part of the unhoused population that did make and continue to make these choices. That's not talking at all about the situational homeless who lost their job or the single mom with 3 kids because their husband went to jail or whatever. I mean, there's so many scenarios. Not talking about those.
I guess that's, well, that's going to open up another can of worms on Facebook. I have no doubt. But, and you, as you just stated, you have more experience with this kind of thing than I do, certainly. But
you're struggling with the fact that it's choices.
I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second. Is that, it's, when you're speaking of drug addicts and alcoholics, I mean, at what point is it a choice? And I know that you just said it's you choose to do something the first time. I don't think that is a debate that we can settle today.
Nope.
But the idea that people with addiction or addictive personalities, is it inevitable? I don't know. But I think the issue is going to be the idea that they made a very conscious decision to go down that path, and I'm not sure that's the case. But I don't know. It's a tough one.
That's your opinion, and we're into an opinion-based at that point.
Well, at some point, we agree to disagree. Right?
Absolutely,
And not everybody has to agree on those things. That's why these are the most difficult things cities face.
Yeah. Because it's not, it really would be much easier if it was a black and white situation, but it's not. Okay.
Well, I don't envy the position that you're in. I'm glad that we have people that are there. I'm glad that it's a conversation that you're not. Let's give some credit to the fact that you're not just turning your head the other direction either. And so whether it's the church, whether it's, the city, whether it's outside organizations that are dedicated to working on these things, hopefully we can come up with a resolution that works in our community. It's been tough, as you were pointing out, it's been super tough on other communities at larger scale to deal with this as well. So let's maybe progress on to something a little bit more
positive.
lighter.
in terms of, I mean, that is very much a part of the state of the city. And that, kind of leads on to the actual kind of state of the city address. And we watched it this morning. I don't know if other people have watched it, but I think we'd like to give you an opportunity to talk about the state of the city address and maybe highlight some things that you're proud of, that you participated in, or that the city of Montrose have done in the last, in 2024.
Oh, sure. I would encourage anybody that didn't make it out to the state of the city to go to our website. You can go to our city website, citymontrose.org, or you can go to montroselifestyle.com, and we broke up the presentations into little bite-sized chunks.
Okay.
So you don't have to sit down and watch the entire thing at once. You can watch piecemeal. But we had Scott Murphy, city engineer, and we had a few other employees get up and talk about some of those major projects from last year, which were really transportation driven. We keep building new roundabouts. We keep building more streets to help relieve the congestion. And then we talked about some economic development projects in the URA and throughout the community, some of our business DART programs. And so we're really proud of all those efforts. We talk about the topic we just did. That's a pretty small thing in Montrose compared to the bigger picture.
Right.
The bigger picture is we're one of the best economies in the state of Colorado. We have some of the least amount of debt for any city of our size. We work with a very small number of employees to keep the cost down, and we're able to produce a lot of things here in Montrose, not just the city, but a lot of our nonprofits that other towns of our size are very envious of. So when we travel the state, they always ask us, how do you get all those things done in Montrose? And our answer all the time is collaboration and really good partnerships and a lot of forethought and planning. And we just have a really good team that's willing to not say no to everything. Because a lot of times government, the easy answer when somebody wants to do something, even if it's $500,
right,
the answer is, well, that's not in our budget. We can't do that.
Right.
Well, that's not true. Everybody could make it work if you use your creativity. So we're really proud of that. So we talked a lot about that. And we had probably 300-ish people come, a little more than last year. And then after we did the hour presentations in the auditorium, we had tables set up throughout the pavilion where people could go and interact with all of our different department heads. We had our youth council there. We had some outside contract partners as well. And so you could come and interact with the staff who are making the decisions and really have the boots on the ground. And you could volunteer to be part of some of those efforts. So it was really fun. The city.
So there was a statement that you made there that often I feel like I come across this in the community, like, and usually there's some reference to it in questions when we have these sit downs with you, which is, how the city spends its money, where the money comes from, et cetera, et cetera. And you made a statement that said, 90% of the city's funds come through sales tax. Did I get that quote correct?
Yeah, about 90% this year.
And 60% of that number, you said, comes from non-residents, I guess. Am I quoting that correctly?
Yeah, it's an approximate.
Okay. I was going to ask you how you came up, how do you guys track that or know that or whatnot? But
years ago, we ran a bunch of analytics with a firm that went out and stood in front of city markets, stood in front of Corks, all over the community. And we talked to our hoteliers, and we just gathered a lot of analytics through our Office of Business and Tourism. And so we don't have money or time to do that every year. And so we're just thinking it's still at least that amount, which is about 60% of our sales tax comes from people outside of the city limits. Some of those live up on Spring Creek. We have, about 10,000 people just outside the city, but a lot of those are passed through because they're coming through Montrose to go to Durango, to Mesa Verde, or Black Canyon National Park, or they're just coming over here, especially post-COVID, to enjoy our mountains and our outdoors because it's not as crowded. And so they spend a lot of money in our community at the big box stores. And the big box stores kept us afloat through the recession because everyone from the region comes here to stock up. And so they're all from out of town. They come in and they go to Target, Home Depot, all the places. And so it's really important for people to understand that. Every once in a while, people say, well, why don't you stop taxing groceries for people? Well, that's a lot of the money because people are coming in from the region or they're flying into the airport and they're stocking up at City Market and going to the liquor store before they head up to Telluride.
Is
that is a lot of revenue you're talking about. It's probably our entire street maintenance budget.
Is there a scenario somewhere else in Colorado that they're getting that reference from, that somebody does tax groceries in another part of the?
There are some other places that
Are there?
don't tax groceries yet.
Okay. All right. Well,
But then they presumably have
They have property tax.
they have property tax.
Yeah.
within the city.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
We are the largest city in Colorado with no property tax. We're one of the only cities without a property tax. And that's very important for people to keep in mind. So when they're saying we need to have a tax holiday, we need to lower taxes,
Right.
you're not talking about the city of Montrose.
Right.
You should talk to all the taxing entities that have property taxes, because they actually set a mill levy every year and have the ability to adjust that.
So if I live,
We can't give tax rebates. How would we track down the million people that shop the city market that don't live here? We don't keep track of you.
so if I live in the city limits of Montrose, I don't pay property tax.
To the city of Montrose.
You pay property tax too.
School district, fire district, rec district, the county,
Okay.
and a variety of other taxing entities.
Okay. So because essentially, I think that was going to be my next question: is some of this ire and county commissioners, you're welcome to come on WKRP and talk about this as well. Is that ire like pointed at you, but you're not the taxing entity? Like, so is it like you're not even the bill collector that's coming to the door, but they're finding you and yelling at you with the idea that, like, it seems like conversation that's pointed in the wrong direction.
There's a lot of that, but I think they're also yelling at the county.
Okay.
Because I've gone to a couple of county commissioner meetings, the same people are there.
Right.
And but I think it is easy for people to not know the difference between all the taxes and stuff. Unless you're working in that world,
Right.
it's pretty confusing.
Well, speaking of tax, we have a new tax in Montrose, right? The lodging tax that was passed in November. Is that right?
We had a lodging tax. It was just really small.
Okay.
And it went up to 6%.
Okay.
From 6% from what?
0.8%.
Okay.
Okay.
So we did
So that is
discuss
big.
this on a previous
Yep.
one. But
So just to give you numbers now, because I just saw them.
okay.
So the year before, $9,000, I think, collected in January.
Wow.
$60,000 collected this January. And in our ballot, we talked about it last time, we earmarked it. So that money is going to be able to go to a variety of things like public transportation and childcare and housing, and hopefully get us some sustainable monies to really help in those areas.
And you guys did just launch, well, I don't know if it's you, but there's a new public transportation now that extends through Ridgeway, Uray, and
Is that Mustang route?
no. I'm thinking of
You're thinking of the one from Telluride.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
New ride.
But
Is there any money that's contributed to that from the city?
No, I don't know much about that one.
Okay.
But we have the All Points Transit, right? That's what's the name? They call it the Our Way, Your Way, Uray.
Yeah.
We do have all points, yeah.
Yeah,
And we partner
presumably
with them.
the city, gives them some of this new lodging tax money will go to them in terms of transportation, I assume.
We specifically didn't name All Points Transit because we want it to be open to any public transportation, but they're the largest provider in Montrose.
Okay, so just to be clear, $9,000 was raised in, let's say, January last year. $60,000 in January of 25.
Correct.
That's a huge leap.
Yeah.
And that money it's essentially a tourism tax, right? It's not anything that we are paying unless you have a little staycation. It's hotels
Only
and
lodging tax.
And that includes Airbnb and VRBO and stuff where
Correct.
possible, right? Where you can track that down.
Yeah, those are hard to track down, but we do have, I can't remember the exact number. I think we're a little over 100 registered Airbnb or VRBOs now.
Okay, so that's going to generate 700,000 in the year, probably something around that.
Probably more. We had to estimate before on the ballot. I think we estimated a little over 1 million because the summer months will be busier.
Right.
That's our busiest months.
All right.
All right. I know we got some questions directly from people, and we haven't really gotten to them.
All right. Well, we have one, and again, it follows on with downtown and sales tax. And you talked about sales tax in the big box stores, but and I think we've covered this before, but we'll quickly answer it again. How do we get more people walking around downtown, and how do we incentivize those sort of handful of prime spots that we have in our downtown that are vacant and have been for a while? Because I love our downtown, but when you have a few stores that are vacant, it kind of it messes with the vibe a little bit. And is there any way to incentivize people who are just, presumably people are just sitting on those properties?
We get this question for every year for a long time, and not just here in Montrose, every downtown. We don't have very many vacancies for normal downtowns of our size, so we're actually doing really well with that. DART's amazing. Michelle and her team are amazing.
Shout out,
go to
Michelle
the
is
DART
amazing.
committees. There are 20-some business owners around the table. 5 years ago we had 2. So it shows a huge sense of engagement with our small businesses, which is what you need. It's really the small business who drive the ambiance in a downtown. It's not the government.
Right.
So all we try to do is provide some resources through our retail and sales enhancement monies to put on events downtown and do things that would ring cash registers and things that just make people want to come downtown, whether it's trick-or-treating or, all kinds of things.
The parade.
Yep.
It was fantastic. The parade this year was great, and I really do think Michelle and the DART team do a wonderful job.
So I guess another way to ask the same question, but maybe just a little bit differently, and I know this isn't under your purview with the city, but economic development within Montrose. What is your perception of like economic development and trying to drive and attract new businesses into the area? Because that would solve some of the vacancy issues if there were, people actively, and there are people actively looking to build new businesses in Montrose. So
yeah, let me answer that after I answer the storefront issue. So we have tried doing window wraps in the past on those empty storefronts that have mountain scenes or whatever on them. So when you're walking from one place to another, it doesn't feel like...
It's also jarring.
Yeah. Some of the building owners don't like that because they want to put their for sale signs and the realtor information, which, I can get that.
Yeah.
We also did pop-up shops in the vacant locations of our visitor center in the wintertime around Thanksgiving to get people to come into those spaces and say, oh, I've never been in here before. It's a big space. And then maybe they talk to friends who have money. And so those are some things we can do and are doing. What we can't do, we had a counselor ask, named Roy Anderson, probably a decade ago, why can't we fine those people?
Right.
Can we tax people that refuse to sell or lower their rents to fill their space? And no, we can't do that.
Well, I'm sure that would be called government overreach, right? I'm sure there would be...
I think it is government overreach.
Right. I'm sure there'd be plenty of people who would be very critical if you tried to use some kind of eminent domain type situation to just...
But I think they do that in some states, but we wouldn't do that here. It's just not what we do as a community.
Right.
And then economic development is a variety of things. Whenever you talk to people, it means something different to everyone.
Right.
But here, we have several areas we focus on. So DART and our small business programs focuses on primarily retention and expansion. So we want to take the business owners we have already. They're vested in the community.
Right.
They are all in, and we want to help them if they want to expand. So we help with remodeling their space, or we help with everything other than inventory or handing them cash. Or we'll help with retention. And that's our programs where if their boiler goes out or their roof starts leaking on all their inventory, we have emergency repair grants and loans to help them stay in business. And those have been very popular. That's retention and expansion, primarily small business. Big businesses don't apply for that stuff.
Right.
And then on the attraction side, MEDC works on attracting primary jobs and industrial employers, usually driven by state contacts who send them our way. And then Anthony Russo, who works with me, the city works with the Dragoos out at the URA, and Anthony works the rest of the city. And he does go to conferences, and so do the Dragoos, and so do some of the business owners, and they take our information with them.
Right.
And they say, hey, Montrose is a great place. I have my business there. You should think about moving your business. That's been the most effective way to attract new businesses is kind of those colleagues saying, hey, I want to bring you where I'm at.
Right.
Ed's Fly Shop's a great example. There's a bunch of those examples.
Yeah.
Secret Creek, who does that all the time for us, John Gibson.
Yeah.
There's some really good people who are advocates for the community, and that's how we go out and attract business.
Yeah.
Thankfully, our economy has been so good, and Montrose is such a destination for people that have been vacationing in Telluride for years. Now they want to bring their business closer to Telluride. They can't go to Telluride, of course, and they want the larger population. So they set up shop here in
Yeah.
Montrose.
I was going to say, if anybody does know Anthony Russo, he definitely goes to conferences because all he seems to do is fly in and out.
In and out.
Always
Yep.
going somewhere.
Most of his travel is for his other job, which is working for World Trade Center and and small business
Yeah.
development centers. And so he goes around the world for them, not for us.
No.
And he's training businesses on how to be better businesses.
And he does a lot of eating while he's away. If you're friends with Anthony on Facebook, that's all he does is post.
He's a good foodie. He's a good foodie.
Pictures of restaurants. So, well, that leads me into another question about downtown development and businesses, and you named the Dragoos and that kind of thing. So, the old City Hall building has been purchased, and there's a plan to open it, I believe, sometime next year, and it's going to be a hotel and a restaurant and a catering, culinary training school as well, right?
Yeah, we just, the mayor and I went and met with President Marshall from CMU and Derek Wagner in Grand Junction yesterday.
Yeah.
Talked about that project, and they have already met twice, I think 2 or 3 times with the new owners to talk about kicking off that culinary training program, hospitality program, like they have at the Maverick Hotel,
Right.
in partnership with CMU over there.
Yeah.
And so we want to do the same thing here. And those owners are now also looking at buying another building nearby and putting in a couple restaurants there. And the restaurant would be in the old fire hall, the annex building off of the Centennial Plaza, and then the hotel in the City Hall part. So
Yeah.
they've already been in there starting to do some minor things. They're thinking of doing full remodel starting in April.
Yeah.
Of that.
And if you know, right? Do you know?
He's so proud of himself for having an inside on that one.
I'm very nosy. It's not a secret. I mean, but it's just,
but you're proud that you knew that.
I mean, the owners, John and Ali, did an interview with the Business Times and stuff like that. It's not a big secret. But
Okay.
yes, I like to show off occasionally.
Yeah, you do like to show
I'm
off.
quite nosy. It's my journalistic background. But anyway,
And they're local.
Yeah.
So they're a
Yep.
local family, and they're reinvesting in our community. It's amazing.
yeah, absolutely. One last question about downtown and that kind of thing. So one question we had was, has Bill heard of strong towns? So strong towns are, apparently they focus heavily on walkability, tax density, and human first towns that create strong local economies. Whether you've heard of that term or not, is that where you think Montrose is headed in terms of walkability and human first?
So Strong Towns is an organization that has their own programming and stuff. And
Okay.
we've been part of similar ones. We have not been part of that one, but I know of them because I go to the city managers conferences and kind of see all their vendor booths and talk to them and stuff.
Yeah.
And see presentations. So it is the backbone of our business development program. Those focus on the ambiance in your downtown, making it a place that's attractive and people want to be down there. The longer people hang out in your downtown, so that's where walkability and storefronts and business owners being open after 6 p.m. is very important. We don't have that yet, but we're working on it. Nightlife, we're working on those things. So that's what that's all about.
Yeah.
So I've heard of it. We haven't been a partner with them.
But we are essentially heading in that general direction. Okay.
Yeah, and that just means you're focusing on building from within, and you're creating great spaces and space making and all those things that DART does.
Yeah.
I've noticed that we've done a lot of improvements in our parks, and we've paid a lot of attention to them over the last year. But I still feel like there's a huge opportunity for just pedestrian traffic improvement in Montrose. Is that on your guys' radar? Is what does that look like? I'm talking about we've got some pretty poor conditioned sidewalks and things like that. And I know that you constantly make improvements, but is that in your guys' wheelhouse or on your radar of pedestrian traffic in Montrose over the next couple of years?
Well, we've always focused on it. We've had $100,000 a year for ADA accessibility on sidewalks, and then another $50,000 just for a matching funds program for sidewalks. But this year, council's priority was to do at least $5 to $6 million in major street improvements, and then also beef up our sidewalk allocation in the budget. And so we have a couple $100,000 in there just for sidewalk connections and repairing the broken areas of our older sidewalk, especially downtown. It's a lot of the older neighborhoods. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
I mentioned
absolutely.
Parks, but
I'm saying you guys are doing such a great job at the parks and the improvements in parks in downtown, but our sidewalks and things like that, there's still a lot of opportunities for improvement there. And I just wondered if that was on your guys' radar.
it's on our radar. It's probably $10 million worth of work. So we do
A little bit at a time.
Yeah.
Got
And
it.
I guess people can, should come to the city and tell the city, you know, communication is key, right? So if there is a sidewalk and it's damaged near your house, I mean, they can come to you and tell you about things, because things are not necessarily going to get done if we as community members don't communicate what we would like to see. I mean, you can't please everybody all of the time, but communication is critical, I guess, in that respect.
Yes, we had an app called A Better Montrose.
Yeah.
And now it's See Click Fix.
Okay.
You can go on the website, download. You can go to the Apple Store or wherever
Yeah.
you get your apps, download that for free, and you can take a picture of it. It sends it right in, it geocodes it, and you'll get a response when it's fixed.
There you go. I mean, so there are ways to communicate. That doesn't necessarily mean someone's going to come tomorrow and fix it, but, you know, if we don't tell the city about it.
They will get back to you right away and let you know that it's on their radar, and then they'll let you know when it is fixed.
Okay.
Do you want to touch on, I mean, I know that you guys have done a good job of trying to communicate as much as you can, the new public works location off of Rio Grande. Is there any updates or things that you want to share on WKRP for people about that project? This is a big project.
It's a huge project.
Before
It's
you get
amazing.
into that, can you just, because for my benefit,
Yeah.
can you just, why was the move necessary? And then answer his question.
Sure. If anybody hasn't been to our current public workshop, it's over on the San Juan bypass,
Yeah.
across from Kinnikin.
Mm-hmm.
It's been there for over 60 years, and there's cracks in the foundation. There's cracks in the walls. It's an old facility. It's been added on to many times over the years, and so there's just a lot of issues.
So it's time.
Leaky,
Yeah, it's just time. That's, yeah.
And our community's grown in size since then, obviously, more than doubled from back then.
Right.
And so that means more street sweepers, more vac trucks, more trash trucks.
Right.
And we need a place to house all that really expensive equipment rather than parking it outside like we do now in the elements. And so we're trying to be on a 7-year rotation for major pieces of equipment. Mm-hmm. But, you know, if it sits outside every winter, it's not going to last as long as we would hope.
Well, wasn't there a video from Public Works just saying that actually what they have to do is some of that machinery has to be parked inside overnight during the cold months.
Yeah.
And then
Jim Scheid did a video on
it. Part of their workday then becomes moving those vehicles out so that they can use the shop and move other vehicles in to work on repairing them.
Yep.
Like
At the end of each day, they have to move stuff around to park it in there, and then in the morning they have to move it all out so the mechanics can work on stuff. It's totally
just not
inefficient.
efficient. Right.
Yeah. And we do work for other entities like All Points and the Rec District and others for fleet management kind of stuff. And then the fuel station needs updated.
Right.
You don't want those to get too old and all that kind of stuff. And then we're also in the flight path of the airport. And so we analyzed first a few years ago, could we stay on the current location if we used more space for buildings? And we're just not allowed to build on that entire section, which is
it's right at the end of the run, or right at the beginning or end of the runway, whichever way you think about it.
It's the opposite side of Salvation Army,
Right.
and it's right on there. And so it just isn't feasible. We can't use that location. Plus, that intersection is really dangerous. If you've been on that it's disjointed. You know, I don't know if people had major.
It's not great
accidents.
turning out or trying to get cross traffic coming out from the
right? Well, they have to drive trash trucks.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So it took over a year to find a location that would be central, be accessible to all the road networks and everything.
Right.
And so that's how we, and Jim Scheid's developed great relations with all the landowners around the river and stuff. And so we were able to work out a really good price for the property, which is down on Oak Grove Road, behind the federal buildings there.
National Forest Service buildings and
across from Russell Stover.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that where there's a little trailhead now.
Is there going to be through traffic?
So for decades, everybody's in the community has wanted a parallel to Townsend.
Yeah.
And so we did Main to South 3rd as our first piece of it, but that'll go all the way down to the new ambulatory care center.
Oh.
As this project, it'll go down as far as Anderson Road.
Okay.
And then we'll look for federal and state funding because the rest is over $20 million. But that's the plan in the next several years, is to continue all the way down. And then we have private owners who want to build housing along that stretch for the community.
So for those of us who are directionally and street name challenged, I think of that as like, okay, you're not going to quite make it all the way to where that road ends from the Target entrance, like when you come whatever that cross street is over Townsend that comes into Target, that goes down and then stops, right?
When it goes all the way down, it will connect right there behind where Maurice's. And
that's what I'm talking about. It goes like, yep. Okay, so when it's finished, but it won't get there on this next section.
Correct. This segment will go to Anderson Road, which is New Vista Credit Union.
Okay.
Okay. And what will happen?
And the hot tub place.
Right. What's going to happen to the old site? Is it owned by the city? I assume it'll be eventually sold off, perhaps, or?
Yeah. So first thing, we'll have to clean up any contamination around the fuel station. Over time, those tanks always leak probably and that kind of thing. So we have to make sure it's a clean site, get everything demoed. And then we've already had people interested in that site, but it'll be 5 to 6 years before
it's
totally
available.
Ready, yeah.
Okay.
We've got a few more questions left. I mean,
we're coming up on time for sure.
We are coming up on time, but I feel like these episodes can go a little longer if people want to. So there's another question that's in that general area. So the question is, why did the city not purchase the 19-acre parcel on top of Sunset Mesa that is basically surrounded by city property? You know where I'm talking about.
Big open space, yeah.
So it was sold in 2020 by the county to a private buyer, yada, yada, yada. So did the city have the opportunity to purchase that? And if it did, why didn't it?
The county's old gravel pit area is what they're talking about, I think.
Yeah, up by
the only part that was owned by the county.
Up by the water, the new water tower, right?
Yeah, so 20 years ago, there was an agreement, informal agreement with the county that they would give us right of first refusal on that property.
Right.
And when they went to sell it, they would basically hand it over for $1 or whatever.
Right.
When I first started, that was a big talk of the community. Nobody could ever find the paperwork on that or anything, and it was from decades ago. So that was the first thing we researched. The long-term plan up there was you could use where we crush asphalt, which is right next to that property, and you could combine it all to do another set of baseball fields or something.
Right.
And it's right on the edge there. But I think they moved forward. We didn't really know till they already sold it to a private side, and then we don't really have a real need for it at the current time. And you're not really supposed to go in. That's not good practice to go in and just buy land for something you might do in 50 years or something. So that's how it ended up getting sold to private. But we don't really have a good use for that anyway.
Right. And the power plant just sold. The old power plant just sold, right?
No.
It didn't sell.
We own Bullock Power Plant. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, it hasn't sold. We're still applying to EPA funds and stuff to do the asbestos cleanup there. It'll be a little over $1 million of asbestos mitigation and make sure the fly ash is all out of the ground there, and then it'll be ready to go. The school district approached us about buying that land as part of their big master plan. We've had renderings done in the past to make it a brewery, a climbing gym facility like a Rockin' and Jammin', mini REI outlet. So there's a lot of ideas for that particular property.
Yeah, it's going to be great when, hopefully the right people come in, but it's such a prime location. It could be a really spectacular development for Montrose, I think.
I think so too. I think the school district may have purchased the co-op building, which is next door to it.
Okay.
That might have been what you're thinking.
Okay.
All right, so we are coming up on time. We've got a few they're more quick fire questions, so, don't necessarily need you to go into a huge amount of detail if you don't want to, but the first one, it's kind of a doozy. This is the question, and it may not even be accurate. Why does one of the smallest towns in Colorado, which I'm not sure we are, have one of the highest paid city managers?
Wait, before you answer that, because we've asked this on the bell curve before, and you've answered it.
Right.
It wasn't asked in the same way. It basically was directly, your salary, right? Where are people getting this information, and why is it such a?
You're going to ask me that?
Yeah.
I don't want to keep asking the same questions.
Everybody's getting the information from Mr. David White.
Okay.
Who lies.
Where's he getting it from?
He makes it up.
And where would somebody get the correct information from? Where would they find the right answer?
Is that public information?
Is that public information?
It's all public information.
Okay. Okay. So where would they find a list of
being put out is gathered through our transparency portal, which we have. You can go to every check we write at the city on our website, and the county as well. So that's where the information's being picked up, and then they manipulate that information and they put it out.
Right.
But is there a list of city managers' salaries somewhere that
So I have it's been in the Mirror almost every year. Gail Marvel, who writes for the Mirror, asks, because I have my evaluation at the end of this month, and so does the attorney. We'll get our compensation changed or whatever based on our performance, and then immediately we'll get a request, open records request for that. And so I always send the comparable sheet, and so we follow a hybrid approach to our pay and comp systems at the city. We have a market-based salary adjustment where we look at the market of similarly situated communities based on population, number of employees, total budget. And then we do that for everybody, not just me and the attorney, but all of our employees. And that's how your base salary. We look at about 15 to 21 different communities across Colorado. It depends what role you have. Sometimes we'll look at other visitor bureaus or convention centers, if we're talking about those kinds of employees. Sometimes we'll look at water or sewer companies, utility companies for our utility guys. But for manager, it's easy. You just look at the other cities.
Right.
So we have...
and you're looking at cities that are comparable sizes, right?
yeah, so we have a range.
Right.
So we have high paid cities of about our size or a little bigger. And then we go all the way down to lowest paid, like Cortez is always the lowest paid on our list.
Right.
And that's a smaller population. And everything in between those is kind of our range for all of our employees. And so then you pick up the counties and you pick up the Cortezes of the world. You pick up the Goldens of the world, who are very similar to us as far as budget, employees, and everything. Even though you think a Golden, they're usually the highest paid.
Right.
But everything else is the same as ours. So it just happens to be there. It's expensive to live there. And then you have Delta and you have Grand Junction and Durango. Grand Junction and Durango are the most comparable to us just based on their tourist populations, their services they provide. We're bigger than Durango, but we're smaller than Junction. But similar residents, similar kind of economies.
Yeah.
So we look at all those. So I always release that entire spreadsheet with all the data.
Right.
And so it's been in the Mirror many times. People can search it up. It's been in the Daily Press many times.
Yeah.
So we always put that information
So
out.
who's top of that range?
So we're compiling it right now. So it might change tomorrow because I haven't got all the 25 numbers in for everybody, but it's probably Golden and Grand Junction, and then Durango are the highest of. And then it's important, we are not one of the smallest communities in Colorado.
No, not even.
We are the second largest in all of western Colorado.
Right.
So only Grand Junction's bigger than us. We're bigger than everybody else. We provide more services than anybody else, maybe including Grand Junction. So they know that. We have a friendly competition. We're good friends with the manager over there. So that's just not true.
Right.
And then the part about being the highest, David White at one point said I'm paid more than the governor, and I'm the highest paid employee in all of the state. It's not true. You go over into the bigger cities, they're paid $350,000, $400,000 a year. I make $210,000, which on the list of all the comparables, for instance, Gunnison makes $223,000. The city of Gunnison, which is half our size.
Right.
Grand Junction, $260,000. Durango, I haven't got their new numbers, but probably it's going to be around $250,000. And so I'm right in the middle of all of our comparables.
I can tell you the city manager at Gunnison better be glad there's not a WKRP
in Gunnison.
They've got some explaining to do there. Honestly, that's why we kind of call these quick fire ones, because we don't want to change their questions, but we want to just give you an opportunity to say, well, we're not one of the smallest towns and I'm not one of the highest paid managers. Next.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they keep putting, we can't battle. There's too many of those miss.
Right.
Like my son got a full ride athletic scholarship to a prestigious institution. D3s don't even give athletic scholarships. He got all academic.
Right.
And he did get their biggest scholarship they offer because he's very smart. And he happens to play golf. But he did not get an athletic scholarship because that would violate NCAA standards.
Right.
Whoever prints that stuff should do their research. They printed a lot of other stuff, like the school had DEI statements. So does every college in the country, including Wyoming, where I went, which is probably the most conservative, other than Washington and Lee University in the country. Yeah. They also have those statements because most people care about that stuff today.
Right.
We're not supposed to be racist anymore. We're, and universities get federal money.
Right.
There's a lot of rules about that. And so it's just picking and choosing the information you want to print, and it's unfortunate.
Absolutely. Can you explain what home rule means?
Oh, yeah, I talked on the Colorado Public Radio about that as well. Home rule is when a community creates their form of government, they can be statutory, which means they follow Colorado statutes. Most towns are statutory. They're arms of the state. Counties are statutory. They're arms of the state. So at the end of the day, the state tells you what you can and can't do. Municipalities can go to a vote of their people and create a charter and be home rule, which means your charter and your residents control almost everything for your community, what you can and can't do, with a few exceptions. Anything that's considered a statewide public emergency issue, their ethics, some of the statewide ethics codes, we still have to follow those things. But for the most part, we can control our own destiny, and because we're home rule, and it's really important to maintain home rule status across the country. It's very important.
Okay.
You don't want the state. That was my thing on Colorado Public Radio was we don't need the state legislature telling us what's good for Montrose. We need Montrose telling us what's good for Montrose.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Well, we got 2 more questions.
We'll get to it then.
The Montrose Permanent Fund was initiated last year. Is that related to the city? And can you explain what that is, if it is? If it's not, then...
That's the city CMU partnership.
Right.
And so as part of the selling of City Hall, we took the proceeds and we pooled that with the money from Colorado Mesa University and created the endowment fund to start building money. So we have money that's dedicated to building the campus out here in Montrose and expanding the campus and expanding program opportunities and curriculum. So the hospitality program you were talking about will be the first program created under that new model. And it also, over time, will build up millions of dollars that we can use to build out more on the campus, the quad, put in dorm housing, food service, and really just keep building CMU Montrose.
And where does that money, where does the city's contribution to that fund come from?
Our first contribution was from the proceeds from selling City Hall.
Okay.
And then we do that. We have an agreement where we pay so much every year for several years to match what CMU puts in from Grand Junction.
All right. And one more question. Go on.
Well, I want to ask one more question about that because we're obligated to work with CMU. We don't have an opportunity to have other extended campuses to come into Montrose, right?
Wow. Just wow. Carry on.
What do you mean, wow?
You and you're fumbling over words.
That's come up over the years.
Haha.
It's an issue with, there's a territorial thing based on the boundaries. I'm not a higher education person, but I'm on the advisory council. So we've talked about that over the years. There is some state rules regarding the higher education institutions and their service area. Mm-hmm. And so we do partner with the vocational school in Delta. We partner with them on certain programs that CMU Montrose doesn't offer, dental hygiene and some of those things. But we focus on the programs that CMU does offer, and we've added more every year. Like the nursing program is huge. New welding programs have over 80 high school students in it this first semester kind of thing. A new business program. You can stay here and get all the way through your bachelor's and a bunch of things where you never have to go to the Junction campus anymore. And so what we can offer is less of an issue than expanding territories of other colleges coming into what CMU's territory is.
I think the reason why I brought that question up, and I think the reason why it was asked to me is, if we're obligated to working with CMU, how do we keep CMU invested in continuing to grow those opportunities here in Montrose? And you're saying
CMU is doing a great job.
Yeah.
If you look at 10, 12
Not
years
that I want to piss off a partner that's coming in and spending time here.
No,
I'm just asking. The question was asked to me.
Ago, we didn't have a campus.
Yep.
The city went in and built the quad in partnership with the county and CMU. We helped buy Patrick Davis building, which is now and Jim Branscombe donated money as well. That's kind of the admin area there. We helped buy the old community options building, which is now Cascade Hall. We've all teamed up on our monies to do those things. And then CMU pays all the professors. They handle all the administration. We just help with infrastructure.
Right.
And then we bought that house on the corner called the Kyle House. And we have 10 to 11 dorm units in there for the summer law enforcement academy, which is a partnership with CMU. And so we built new things every year. It's completely different than it was 10 or 15 years ago. A lot of the people that ask those questions have been around a while, and they haven't been on the campus, or they aren't familiar with the programs that are there currently. So the best thing to do is just go in and ask. Our HR director, Terry Wilcox's husband, Chris Wilcox, is the program person there. So he'd be the one to go in and talk to, or Steve Matheny, who's the overall director of the campus.
So asking questions, again, this is what we talked about earlier. You got to ask questions.
Absolutely.
If you're inquisitive and you want to know something, ask.
Even
Ask-
if you fumble over your questions
Yeah,
a little
exactly.
bit.
Ask us to ask, but call the city, and if you want answers on something, it's all out there.
Yeah. Okay, last question.
Last
Let's wrap
question.
it up.
So this next question was submitted anonymously. When is Montrose going to get a sign that says, "Welcome to Montrose, home of the world's best American whiskey"?
Wonder who asked that question.
Yeah.
Probably Shelter Distilling.
Dave, you got zinged. Yes. No. That's not a
We are
serious.
so proud that they got the award for the second year. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it is fantastic. Dave and Storm King do a great job. The association is a great place. That
Is there any
next
plans
level.
for a new welcome sign
Oh, yeah.
on either side of the town?
Yeah, so on our website, you can look up Wayfinding Signage Program,
Uh-huh.
and it'll show the plan. And so the coming in from the north, we have the tree that's overgrown there in the old entrance. So we already have it in our wayfinding plan, which was a 5-year plan. We have rough designs for that already. And so we have that location. We have the eastern location, which is a little different because there's not a lot of electricity running out to that one. We might move it in closer to where the Gold's Gym corner is.
Okay.
So you really feel like you're in town when you hit that corner. Right now it's out toward Johnson. And then we want to do a big one as you come in from the south. There's actually some good right-of-way there. Because we also have to keep in mind CDOT.
Yep.
So if you're replacing an existing sign, it's not a big deal. If you're making it bigger or adding an electronic sign,
Right.
CDOT controls that.
Okay.
So it takes a little while, but it's definitely on the radar. We started first with our trail signage and our downtown signage and all of our street signage. If you go around, that's all has the new reflective coloring on it and the new look and feel downtown. And then we're partnering with CMU to do all new banners from Townsend to Park to South 5th to Main. So it looks like and feels like you're in a university district. And so that's part of the wayfinding too. But each one of those welcome signs is between 70 and 200,000.
All right, Dave, you
Yeah.
got some of that big whiskey money you want to kick in?
Well, I was just gonna tell Dave. Hey, Dave, thanks for becoming a new sponsor for WKRP with the association.
Yeah.
The association, a great place to wind down the day in
Yeah.
Montrose.
We'll send you a bill. All right. With that,
Yeah,
I think we've exhausted every.
we've closed another bell curve
I think that was a good one.
with Bill Bell.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we didn't. I don't.
And what?
He doesn't look rattled. So
No
failed.
rattling.
no, we.
I felt like there was a couple of deep breaths in there somewhere.
Maybe.
That's so I don't cough in the mic.
Oh, is
Yeah.
that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have failed.
We'll disinfect the mic afterwards.
We have
should do
failed,
that.
Yeah.
and the community has failed.
Once again, to challenge.
in challenging Bill. I don't want to be facetious. I mean, there were some serious issues in there. I think, we try to keep it as light as we can, but there were some serious issues there at the start, and Bill will come back again, I'm sure, and come back to us with more questions. We want this to be an ongoing thing because the development of a city, much like with the police chief, is there's always something new happening. So. And this issue isn't settled. If you have questions about this issue as it develops or any issue, we're happy to put them to Bill. But
WKRPmontrose.com.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes, sir.
Of course. So
Yeah.
please come talk to us for anybody who's listening and spread the word that the negativity is not helping our community. We see it on TV. We see it across the country. Divisiveness doesn't solve problems. And we need collaboration, and we need people to be real, down-to-earth people and talk about facts that are truly facing our community. And we're all in it together. We all live here, and we want it to be a great place. And just attacking people and making things up isn't helping anybody. So
no.
So
talk to us.
be contributive. Don't be divisive. Is that the
Honestly, I think that's as good as we're going to get out of you. Now, it's been over an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah?
You're tapped out, I think.
I think I might be.
Thanks
All
for
right.
having me.
Thanks
You're
for coming,
welcome.
Bill. We appreciate it. All right, it's been another episode of WKRP. We will talk to you guys soon. That was Bill Bell with the Bell Curve. Have a good afternoon. We'll talk to you.